Exodus chapter 3, verse number 16. Exodus chapter 3, beginning at verse number 16. It says, "Go and gather the elders of Israel together." God is speaking to Moses. "Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you and seen what is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. But I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not even by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all of my wonders, which I will do in its midst, and after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and it shall be, when you go, you shall not go out empty-handed." Have a seat. Have a seat. Family, on this last Sunday of 2024, I'm just going to be real quick today, but I need y'all's help, okay? I need you to help me declare the word of the Lord today. Help me tell your neighbor, don't go out empty-handed. Say it again and think about it. Tell your neighbor, don't go out empty-handed. You made it this far. You did. You survived all the way to this point in your journey. You pushed all the way through to this moment in your story. You might as well not leave empty-handed. Come on, it's your choice. It's your decision. I'm not going to push it on you, but you've been through enough. You've seen enough. You've had some ups. You've had some downs. You've had to climb. You've had to crawl. You got a decision to make today. As we exit this year and enter into something new, don't go out empty-handed. Don't leave 2024 without the gift he's been trying to place in your hand. Don't leave 2024 without the confession he's been trying to pull out of your mouth. Don't leave without the resolve he's been placing in your heart. Don't leave without the instruction for your life and the blueprint he's been whispering in your ear. Whatever you do, don't you dare mess around and go out empty-handed. Don't enter into a new year the way you entered into 2024. Don't leave behind what God has been trying to enter into your heart, into your spirit. Don't go out empty-handed. Family, I want to be super clear. I want to be super clear this morning about what I'm not talking about. I think I can say this with clarity. Here's what I'm not talking about this morning, because here's the reality. The text I'm about to share with you that we're going to unpack together, when most church folks hear it, a passage like this, their mind automatically goes to prosperity stuff. I need to be clear. I'm not talking about dollars and cents right now, okay? I need to be real clear. The preacher going to tell me how to get blessed, how to walk in blessing and claim stuff and naming and claiming all that. And look, no shade. I understand where that comes from, but we've made passages like this about houses and cars and dollars and cents for too long. I need to be clear that I'm not talking about stuff this morning. I'm not talking about things, okay? And look, no shade. If things are what you are in the need of right now, God is a thing provider. I'm not saying he isn't. I'm not telling you not to believe, but I need to be clear. Things are not what God is talking about this morning. Now don't mishear me here. We can't trust God for things, but what I'm saying is that you can have all the things. You can have all the things in the world and still be completely empty-handed. Okay, so I need you to understand there's something more important than things. There's something more important that God has for us and wants for us in this season. Yeah, He gonna pay your light bill. Yeah, He gonna have you drive something. On some days it's gonna be a Bentley. On some days it's gonna be a Honda. But God's gonna bless you. He's gonna take care of you. That's not what we're talking about. There's something more important that God desires for us. And here's why. You can have the money and the cars, the riches, the wealth, the status, the power, your name and lights. You can have all of those things and still be certifiably empty-handed. And here's why. This is going to sound cliche, but I think we're missing this too often in this generation. And since I got the mic, I'm going to say it with my chest here today. Money is not what God is most interested in blessing you with in this season. I'm just going to say that. It's not. It's not. There's too many other things of importance. Hands filled with stuff is not what he's dreaming about on your behalf. Some of y'all are feeling defeated because of how 2024 didn't bring you things you thought you needed. But look, I just don't believe that Jesus is sitting at the right hand of the Father, pleading with the Father to let your Powerball number hit. I don't think that's what he's doing. I mean, he's gonna bless us. Don't get me wrong, but that's not what's most important. It's not money he's trying to fill our hands with in this season. It's not power. It's not status. I believe that the gift God is placing in the hands of those who would receive it is restoration. That's what he wants for us in this season. Somebody say restoration. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, the hopper, the destroyer, the cutter, my great army which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty and be satisfied. Why? Not so you can brag on yourself and pat yourself on the back for being super Christian. No, so you can praise the name of the Lord your God who has dealt wondrously with you. That's what God said to Israel through the prophet Joel in Joel chapter 2, 25 and 26. He said, I want to restore you to my glory for my glory. I want to restore you for my purpose. I want to rebuild you. I want to reestablish you. I want to plant your feet on solid ground after the wind has blown and the earthquakes have come and all of the things have come through your life. I want to restore. I want to establish. I want to restore you. Restoration. That's what I want. Sometimes restoration looks like money. Sometimes it looks like, but what it is God returning you to what he called you. He's returning you to the place he put you in. He's restoring, he's rebuilding, he's reestablishing. See, Joel was a prophet to the nation of Judah somewhere around the ninth century, and we see his prophecies. You can read them now, and they talk about the way the last days are going to look and feel, and you can look and see all of the things. You can see it in his words, but the context of the historical moment that Joel was prophesying, he was in the middle of, Israel was dealing with a catastrophic loss. At that moment, they were dealing with a loss. Judah was experiencing, they were a catastrophic loss. There in Joel chapter 1, it unpacks the whole thing if you want to read it. Catastrophic economic loss, agricultural ruin, economic collapse in their society, all because of a massive plague of locusts that had come through the year, in the year that they were in. Somebody ever felt like a locust was eating everything you had? That's what they were dealing with in that year. Locusts had come through, and it was destroying everything. It's not that God hadn't blessed them. It's that the locusts came to eat what God had given them. Anybody ever experienced that before? That's what Joel was dealing with. That's what he was prophesying to in that moment. God calls Joel to speak a word to the people in the midst of that chaos and the destruction. And what do you think God wanted to say to Israel in the midst of all of that foolishness, with locusts eating everything they had, and the collapse of the economy and the collapse of the society, and everybody was finger pointing and yelling at each other, and God sends Joel to stand up to the people and say something. And what is the first thing that comes out of his mouth? I will restore. Yes, it's been a hard year. Yes, you've experienced some of the greatest loss of your life this year. Yes, you've dealt with highs and lows and pressures you've never experienced and thought would ever occur in your life. But God says to you today, I will restore. I will restore. That's His promise to you today. I will restore. Why? So that you will have a testimony in your mouth. I will restore. I will rebuild. I will reestablish, so that when your neighbor looks at you and wonders how you still have a smile on your face after what you've experienced, you can say, the Lord restored. I will restore. See, the problem is that when we make passages like this about something little like money, we miss the big picture. God wants to do away. He can shake that out of His pockets. He can shake that out of His couch. He's trying to rebuild some things in you. The Hebrew word there for restore in Joel 2:25 is shalom. Shalom. It means to make complete. The enemy ever tries to tell you that you're not complete, it's a lie, because the Lord restores. The Lord has made you complete. Shalom means to make complete, to make whole, and also to repay, to recompense. Shalom conveys the sense of bringing something back to its intended state of wholeness or fulfillment. To bring proper state, something that has been lost or destroyed. God says, I will shalom. I will restore. I will bring this thing back to its proper state. I will bring your heart back to its proper state. I will bring your faith back to its proper state. It took a battering this year. I'm going to bring your confession back to its proper state. You've been holding on like your faith is like one little yarn piece has been spinning. It's got one little string. God said, I'm going to restore it. I'm going to reinforce it. That's His promise. He's always been in the restoring business. This is why Jesus came to the earth. A baby in a manger sent to restore what was lost. To make whole, to repay and bring recompense for the debt owed because of sin, to establish and reestablish and bring wholeness to the intended relationship between God and man. Restoration is literally what we celebrate during Advent season, but don't miss it. Restoration is not just something Jesus did. It's something that Jesus is doing. He's doing it right now. If we receive it, He's restoring right now. He wants to restore some of us right now. He wants to rebuild what has been broken. He wants to replace what has been squandered and lost by our sin. He wants for us to reclaim the gift that He has died for us to enjoy. But family, my fear for so many is that in a world filled with distractions and deceptions, too many people are walking away empty-handed. I'm talking Christians. We're walking away empty-handed. We're walking away after the whole battle you went through, after the whole issue, after the whole chaos that you survived. Please don't walk away empty-handed. Don't walk away without the lesson. Don't walk away without the principle. Don't walk away without the rebuke and the restoration. Don't walk away without the recommitment and the rededication. Don't walk away empty-handed. We're walking away with counterfeit versions of what God means when He speaks of restoration. We're walking away with a counterfeit version sometimes of a deep relationship with God because we're not truly leaning into and living into what it means to walk in restoration with Him. If you think restoration is just about what you drive, I'm sorry you've missed it. If you think restoration is about your zip code or your friend circle or your job, your career path, all of that, you've missed it. You've missed it. If you think restoration is about your freedom to do whatever you want to do in your life and God's going to forgive me, look, you've missed it. When we walk in true restoration, here's what it looks like. True restoration reconciles us to God. It draws us close to Him. It draws us into him. Restoration, it makes us, it's like a magnet that draws us to him. True restoration reconciles us to God. It reconciles us to God's purpose in our lives. I can't shake it. I just got to do what he's placed in me to do. I dream about it at night. I walk around thinking about it, planning for restoration draws me into what he wants for me. Restoration reconciles us to God. It reconciles us to God's purpose in our lives, and it reconciles us to his people. You can't live on an island and be restored. Reconciliation draws you. Restoration draws you into reconciliation with God's people. It builds community. True restoration draws us closer to God and to Christian community. True restoration draws us into discipleship and fellowship. You can't do it by yourself. I'm doing internet church. Well, are you fully walking in God's restoration? Because it reconciles. It draws you in. That's why 1 Peter 5:10 says, after you have suffered a little while. Here's the truth. After you have suffered a little while. After you've suffered a little while, the God of all grace who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ will himself restore you. He'll confirm you. He'll strengthen. He'll establish you. What you've suffered has been challenging, but there's purpose in it. Because it platforms you for a new level of restoration in God. That's what restoration looks like. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. That's what restoration looks like. It's God erasing yesterday and positioning you for today and allowing you to be drawn into the future with him. That's what restoration looks like. It's not bondage from the past. God breaks that stuff. If we'll leave it, he'll break it and push us forward. That's what restoration looks like. Galatians 6:1 says, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Restoration don't look like finger wagging. It doesn't look like Bible bashing. It looks like heartfelt Christian community, where we remind one another of what restoration really is. We encourage one another about the hope and the promise of what God has for us in this seemly family. That's what restoration looks like. And all I'm telling you on this last Sunday in 2024, I'm almost done. All I'm telling you this Sunday is you don't have to leave this year empty-handed. You can leave it walking in the fullness of your restoration. No matter what 2024 has looked like, no matter what battles, what ups and downs, all the things that we've lost, all of the pain we've had to endure. Yes, it happened. Yes, it left a mark. Yes, we're walking through it and navigating through it, but you can still leave this year moving closer to your restoration. Don't go out empty-handed. You don't have to leave this year with a counterfeit version of restoration. Well, what does God want to restore in your life this morning? What does he want to restore in your life this morning? What broken thing does God want to use to bless you and somebody else if you'd only believe he can make it new? What does he want to restore? What family relationship do you need his help making right before you go into the new year? What broken dream do you need to pull out the trash and place at his feet? What broken promise have you made to him that he desperately wants you to recommit to before you go into this and that? What impulse, what unhealthy behavior is he trying to restore you free from? What broken aspect of your walk with him, your commitment to him, your life with him is fragmented and needs mending? What gift is he pleading with you, with your heart to grasp a hold of so that you don't walk out into 2025 empty-handed? Because what he's placing in your hand is the tool. It's the weapon that you're going to need in 2025. The battle that you navigated this year, the principles and the lessons that came out of those battles, those are the weaponry that God has placed in your hand to help you move into 2025. So you bet not go empty-handed. The battle that you're facing right now, God is pulling things out of that battle to try and train you what you need to do in this next phase of warfare. It's going to look different. There's going to be new faces. There's going to be new issues. But the lessons and the principles and the tools will be the same. Do not go out empty-handed. You've earned, I don't use that word often, but you've earned at least the lesson that you went through in 2024, at least that part, the battle that you navigated in 2024, don't go out into the new year empty-handed. Exodus 3 tells us the story of God's people on the precipice of a brand new journey of restoration. They're about to go through a brand new journey. They've had all kind of battles. They had all kind of obstacles. And God is in the middle of pushing them to a new journey. Moses had just received instructions from God at the burning bush here in Exodus 3. He was literally in the midst of slowly working through his own insecurities and reservations. He was dealing with his own stuff, his own battle with restoration, when God started talking to him about helping to lead Israel to their restoration. Exodus 3:1 says, Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. And so he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And then Moses said, I will not turn aside and see, I will now turn aside and see this great sight. Why? The bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush. Has God ever called you from the middle of a fire? You're looking at chaos in your life, and God is telling you to come closer to it. You're looking at destruction. You're looking at something literally burning down, and God said, come look closer. I want to teach you something in the midst of this fire. God called him in front of the midst of the bush and said, Moses. And he said, here I am. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrow. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from the land to a good and large land, to a land flowing of milk and honey. Verse 10 says, come now therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Here it is. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? Family, how many opportunities for restoration have died on the altar of your insecurity? How many? How many opportunities has God maneuvered in your life and brought to you that died on the vine because your insecurity wouldn't let you go after what God said? How many times has God been trying to rebuild something for us or in us? And instead of praising and thanking him, we said, no, God, it can't be done because I'm stuck trying to figure out who I am. Who am I? Who am I to go and do? Who am I? What Moses is saying is he's not going to choose what God says in his life because he's stuck trying to figure out who he is. And here's the funny part, family. Who are you? Because last time I checked, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who am I. It doesn't matter who we are with regard to what God has marked for restoration. God doesn't need our permission to restore anything. He doesn't need me to know who I am to use me. If I'm obedient, he'll tell me who I am on the way there. He'll show me who I am as I follow him. Moses got stuck on an issue that wasn't really the principal issue. Yes, we all trying to figure out who we are, but God is going to tell us on the way as we obey him. He's going to reveal to us what we need to know as we obey him, as we follow him. He can restore us with or without us. He can restore with our permission or without our permission. He can restore with our cooperation or without. He can restore with our submission or not. But he chooses to invite us into the decision of what we will do with restoration. Verse 11, Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And God said, "I will be with you." He didn't even answer his question directly. He said, "I will be with you." We'll talk about that later. I will be with you. Moses asked God, who am I to step into this role? Who am I to receive and to minister the restoration that you've offered to me into Israel? Who am I to step into this season you've called me into? God didn't say, "Who are you?" Well, you're Moses. You're gonna pronounce 10 plagues on Egypt, the last of which is going to take the Pharaoh's son out, and you're going to lead the Israelites out of Egypt by crossing over the Red Sea on dry ground. You're going to ascend Mount Sinai and receive 10 commandments from God and oversee the construction of the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant. You're going to author all the books of the Pentateuch. No, God didn't tell him. He didn't answer his question. And if God answered your question, it would blow your mind too. Sometimes we're asking for things from God and making that thing that we're asking for so primary and stopping us from moving. And God said, "You're not even ready for the answer yet. Just follow me. I will be with you." God didn't tell Moses exactly what he'd look like on the other side of restoration. He just offered it to him. He called him into it, to walk in it personally and to minister it publicly. And family, if you're waiting on all the answers from God before you accept his invitation into restoration, I need you to understand it doesn't work that way. He's not going to answer all your questions. He's going to offer you restoration, and then he's going to walk with you through it. He didn't answer Moses' questions, "Who am I?" He's not going to answer all your questions, "Why did this happen in 2024?" He's not going to answer every question about how is this thing going to work out in my life and how is that going to work out? How am I going to deal with this and deal with that? He's not going to answer all of those questions. He's going to invite you into restoration, and he's going to walk with you through it. Moses learned a little bit more about Moses every day that he walked with God. And you're going to learn a little bit more about you every day you walk with God. That's what restoration is for. God didn't answer Moses' question, him and I, but God did give Moses a hint of what restoration would look like as he walked in it. Exodus 3:11 says, "But Moses said to God, 'Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children out of Israel out of Egypt?' And so God said, 'I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain.'" Now, that's the question God did answer for him. He didn't tell him what every step of the way was going to look like, but he gave him a sign. When you're fully walking in restoration, here's the sign. The sign will be that it will result in your service to God. It'll result in your service to God. It may not look like money and houses. It may not look like fortune and fame. It may not look like every question being answered in your heart, in your mind, but it will look like a heart of service and commitment to God that cannot be quenched. Because as you walk with God, he will teach you more about who he is and who you are in him. Not so far down the road, God fulfilled the promise that he made to Moses in Exodus 3. 19 to 21. At the burning bush, God promised Moses that he would deliver the Israelites from Egypt and that they would leave with great wealth. But verse 19 says, but I'm sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not even by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in its midst. And after that, he will let you go. Pharaoh will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall be when you go, you shall not go empty-handed. Moses is hearing God talk, and literally the only thing he knows about Israel is that they're a bunch of slaves in Egypt. And I'm sure he's thinking, what do you mean they're not going to go out empty-handed? What do you mean they're going to be set free and delivered? And as Moses walked with God, God revealed his purpose every day, day by day. Over the course of the next several months to years, Moses began to lead Israel slowly into their restoration. As God instructed Moses and Aaron, they went before Pharaoh and announced Israel's restoration and demanded that Pharaoh start treating them like they that way by letting the Israelites go and worship God in the wilderness. That's what they went to him and said. And Pharaoh refused and increased Israel's workload, which led to further suffering. And soon God had enough, and God used Moses to unleash a series of plagues that could not be ignored, devastating judgments on Egypt, demonstrating God's power and sovereignty and so he turned water into blood, and frogs overran the land, and gnats infested Egypt, and flies swarmed Egypt, and livestock died, and boils afflicted the Egyptians, and hail destroyed crops and livestock, and locusts devoured vegetation, and darkness covered the land, and finally there was the death of the firstborn. And after the final plague, Pharaoh had enough, and he finally released the Israelites. Verse 31 of the chapter says, Then he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise, go in from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord. Serve the Lord as you have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. This is Pharaoh talking. And the Egyptians urged the people that they might send them out of the land. Y'all get on down the road. Y'all's God done messed with us. Go ahead. Go down the road. Make haste, leave. For they said, we shall all be dead. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their clothes on their shoulders. And now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. And the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them what they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. As Moses walked in restoration, the people began to walk in restoration. And then their enemy had to start treating them like they'd been restored. See, that's a principle for us to understand. As we walk with God, and we walk in community with those who are walking with God, the world around us will have to start recognizing that we're walking with God. We're walking in restoration. And all of this sudden, this group of slaves that had nothing, their enemy who had been their taskmasters for hundreds of years, was now urging them to leave and throwing money at them, telling them, y'all just go, take the silver and the gold and all the things, take all this back pay from what we owe you from all of these years of slavery, and y'all get down the road, because we understand that your God is a God of restoration. As God promised, Israel did not leave Egypt empty-handed. They didn't leave without some version of payment for their battle, some return on their investment from their suffering. And God wants you to understand today, there's going to be some evidence of what you went through. There's going to be a blessing that comes out of the storm. There's going to be some glory that comes out of the battle. That's a part of what restoration is. God was going to supply Israel's needs anyway, but what God was after was restoration. He didn't want Israel to see themselves as slaves anymore. It wasn't about the riches and the gold and the silver. It was about God placing them back in their position, and for teaching them what restoration was supposed to look like in their life. He didn't want them to identify as captives anymore. So the purposes behind the blessing was not about the blessing itself, but it was about what God wanted them to know about their blessor and what he was proclaiming over them as the blessed. Families, I need you to understand the same is true for you and I this morning, and I'm done. There's some things that he wants to declare over you that will shape your relationship with the blessor, that will teach you about what it means to be his blessed. But it's on the other side of us receiving his restoration. It may not look like what you prayed for exactly. It may not look like what you asked for exactly. It might be on the other side of really difficult battles and really challenging obstacles. But there's a version of you on the other side of that restoration that's going to blow your mind. There's a version of you, a matured, learned, submitted version of you on the other side of restoration that's going to blow your mind if you submit to it. A version of you that would shock you and surprise you if you would submit to it. If you would follow God and don't go out empty-handed. Don't go out of this year without the lesson, without the commitment, without the purpose, without the desire to pursue him more, to give yourself to him more, to actually fully lean into your restoration. Don't go out empty-handed. Stand on your feet.